So the woman at the center of a highly contentious video pertaining to a dispute over a city bike turns out to be the victim in the case rather than the villain, which this woman was portrayed as a racist Karen villain type of character by not only, your general pundits on Twitter and what have you, but even the mainstream media participated in what can easily be described now as a defamatory escapade. My name's Greg Hoyt, and we're going to go ahead and dive into the details of the new updates that depict the once dubbed Karen into the victim of an attempted robbery here on The Breakdown.
And I like good trees. Smoke so much weed you wouldn't believe. And I get more ass than a toilet seat. 3 to the 1, from the 1 to the 3. I met a bad bitch last night in the D. Let me tell you how I made it.
So over the past few days, a pregnant woman by the name of Sarah Jane Comrie has basically had her life turned upside down over a video that went viral and was viewed tens of millions of times online, on Twitter, so on and so forth, where it depicts this woman in a sort of a verbal spat, a disagreement over the rental of a city bike, which she's asserting that she rented this, city bike, and a group of young black teenagers were, accosting the woman saying, no, I rented the bike, and this, back and forth ensued, and the woman was asking for help, calling out for help, and when people came to her aid, or when folks just came up and assessed the situation, she began crying, but, as the narrative went with the mainstream media and so on and so forth, this woman was depicted as like the most racist Karen type of person because she was trying to put these young black men in harm's way, and she was also depicted as someone who was basically lying about the entire situation, and that she may not have even rented the city bike at the center of the dispute. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and play the video because chances are if you're watching this one right now, you've already seen the original video, the original incident, where, as from what we can see, just based solely upon the video, there are two parties, this woman and the black teens, having a dispute over who rented a city bike, and, they're kind of physically struggling and tussling with this bike back and forth. But again, what was all the more crazy about this situation was the narrative that was getting spun up by pundits, by indie news outlets, and even the mainstream media, with one person in particular, one journalist who clearly had this really odd, obsessive vendetta against this pregnant woman. In a May 17th News One article published by Monique Judge, Judge framed Comrie as being the villain in this situation, going so far as to assert that she was trying to take the city bike away from the young men, claiming that the young men had already paid for it. Judge writes, Sarah Comrie was caught on video trying to physically take a city bike from a young black man who had already rented and paid for it. Citi Bike is a bike-sharing service available to the public where one can rent both manual and motorized bikes in and around New York City. Now, that claim by Judge is not supported by any facts whatsoever. She has zero evidence to prove the claim that the young men in the video had already rented the bike. But she goes on to write in this piece that, Comrie was trying to steal the bike. And let's just say that that statement alone, is probably going to bite Monique Judge in the ass. Because based upon new evidence, it looks like that Comrie did rent the bike at the center of the dispute. A May 18th article from the New York Post reads, the lawyer for a Manhattan hospital worker accused of taking a city bike from a young black man, who claimed that he paid for the two-wheeler, provided receipts that he says shows she was the one who purchased the ride at the center of the viral incident. The Bellevue Hospital employee, who was branded a Karen on social media afterward, rented the bike first, lawyer Justin Marino said in a statement to the Post Wednesday. He also provided 2 city bike receipts from May 12, which were time-stamped just minutes apart. The first receipt reviewed by the Post shows the bike being taken out before it was relocked 1 minute later, which Marino said is the bike seen in the video. The second receipt shows another bike being taken out a minute later from the same docking station and was the bike Marino said his client used to get home after being heckled and pressured to find a new bike by the group. This is a situation where it kind of lives up to the meme of, like, show me the receipts. Because in this case, the woman literally has the receipts to show that she rented the original bike that was at the center of the dispute between her and these young men. This is why I said earlier that this Monique Judge character could find herself in hot water in terms of a possible defamation suit, because with the evidence that came out in support showing that Comrie was the person who did purchase the bike and wasn't trying to steal it from that young man, it shows that Monique Judge made a false statement of fact and went so far as to publish it and then spread the news about through her very wide-reaching Twitter platform. And it's not as though Judge can be like, hey, I was just doing an opinion piece, so on and so forth, because in a May 17th post on Twitter where she shared the article in question, of course this is before the report from the New York Post came out, she said verbatim, I was very intentional with my language and wording in this piece because I took this situation very personally. So there she is on the record saying she was very intentional in her language, which means she very intentionally made a false statement of fact. At least we can see that now in hindsight. And on May 17th, with, Judge sharing the article again on Twitter, she was boasting about how it was ranking in Google search engines for this woman's name, the victim of an attempted robbery. I mean, if you want to talk about a hole being dug, this Judge character, really dug herself in a hole if Comrie wants to pursue a defamation suit against her. Because Comrie's name wasn't just dragged and slandered through the mainstream media or the blogosphere. No. She suffered real-world harm outside of the very clear reputational damage. That being, she was suspended from her job at the hospital, with the hospital releasing a statement basically condemning her actions seen in the video. These are all the ingredients. This is the perfect set of ingredients for a rather open and shut defamation suit. Holy hell, you are really in some serious trouble if Comrie decides to pursue civil litigation against you. Because, once again, you've got a large platform, you're bragging about how your article with defamatory statements is the #1 search result, and you're egging on continued harassment of a woman, a pregnant woman, who appears to have been the victim of an attempted robbery. This is one of those cases where I'm all for the civil courts digging this Judge character's proverbial wallet, or not even proverbial wallet, her actual wallet, because not only is the defamation so strong, but you have this Judge character just wanting to egg on continued harassment to disrupt this woman's life. That appears, not only to be defamation, but that also appears to be an attempted infliction of emotional distress. There's obviously a lot of blame to go around for this situation. I mean, Bellevue Hospital certainly harbors some blame, because they were just nothing but reactionary to a situation that they didn't have the full context of. And the mainstream media also, shame on them big time, because they too were complicit in painting this woman as though she was some kind of a racist Karen trying to steal a bicycle from a young man. And of course, shame on Judge and people like her who took this story and then just made up lies. They crafted a narrative. They just made things up on the fly, things that they had zero evidence to prove. And now, with the, advent of receipts, like literal receipts, because, again, this was a bicycle the woman rented through the Citi Bike app on her phone or what have you. She was able to produce a receipt saying, yeah, I was the person who rented that bike. So now, what that video shows is an attempted robbery of this woman. Not her being a Karen, not her being racist or any of that nonsense. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much the long and short of it. Go ahead and share your thoughts on the matter below, whether you think that there is a strong suit against this Judge character, whether you think there's not really enough information or enough evidence to really prove defamation. Whatever your thoughts are on the matter, go ahead and drop it in the comment section below. Anyways, guys, that was the breakdown. Peace.
Hey, this is Greg Hoyt from The Breakdown. If you're new here and checking out the channel on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter @GregHoytLET.